business leaders and surgeons and barristers. I see women who are going to win elections and science competitions and arts awards. Do not be afraid to fail. We can succeed.
All right. Hello, Talk community.
Hello.
Welcome back to an all new episode of Tiff Talks. This is our second part of our From Selfless to Selfish series, and we're back with another topic that ties into that mini series. During our first episode, we talked a very much bit about lethal loyalty and the uncomfortability that's associated with lethal loyalty. And now we're back with a whole new topic that ties into that we are going to be tackling with thought-provoking talk time, table talk time, to address. So that is what we're here to do. For those of you that are new to this platform, I am Tiffany, a licensed clinical social worker by trade and a community activist at heart. And this platform, Tiff Talks, was created with the ideal in mind to be able to bring, insight, awareness, and experience and education to the uncomfortability that's associated with topics impacting Black and brown communities. And that's what we're gonna do. And I am excited because I have the whole group here with me today. So you get to see the faces behind the brand, and I get to share this place and this time with them. So it's gonna be an awesome jam-packed episode. Stick around if you are new to this platform, and welcome back for you guys that are returning to the top community. I am going to hand it over to the lady to my left so that she can go ahead and introduce herself, and then the rest of the team will do just the same.
Okay, hey y'all. This is Kenshay Saxon. I am the executive talk partner for Tiff Talks. By day, I am a executive staff director, staff assistant, whatever you want to call it. I have a hand in a little bit of everything. And I am ready to jump into this topic because your girl has been dealing with a lot of it. So that's just me. I'm gonna pass it to my boy Ken.
Hey guys, it's me, Ken, aka General Manager, aka the husband, the daddy, the uncle, the Bob the Builder, I'm Mr. Fix It. I'm Mr. Do Everything. We're gonna talk about this toxic thing.
Hi everyone, I'm Jaden. I am Tiff Talks production assistant, known as the runaround person, cameraman, and sometimes the social media manager. And I'm Mr. Fix It too. I be fixing it.
Barbara the Builder.
Not Barbara, but fixing it.
She Betty.
But we gonna get right into it.
All right. So, Ken kind of already hinted to today's topic, and that is toxicity, and how that actually relates to this lethal loyalty from selfless to selfish. And as I mentioned, we really pretty much laid the groundwork, Shay and I, in discussing lethal loyalty. And we talked a bit about self-worth or the lack thereof. Also spoke about, self-discovery and the evolution as it is related to self-actualization. And today we are talking about dun 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 dun.
Boom. Toxicity.
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 That's what we talking about.
Toxic.
Toxic people.
Toxic.
Toxic
Situation.
Toxic-ish.
Toxic relationships.
Situationships.
Situationships. I like that. I like
that.
that.
Use that all kinds of
Situationships. And I have to sell ships. And I have to be completely transparent. When we discuss this series and the topics that will go along with this series, it kind of made me a little bit nervous because this series is one that is so many touchy topics.
Yes.
All wrapped up in one, but also the topics that we're discussing requires one to be vulnerable.
Yes.
You have to be transparent with yourself, transparent with each other in this community, and as Gerard said, like, we're bringing the secret sauce to this in order to make sure that we bring awareness and insight, but also keep the conversation going. And I think it's important that we understand that we've all had our own experiences with toxicity and toxic relationships, toxic situationships, toxic people. And for me, I think the common ground is that as common as it is how uncommon as it is unspoken about. Like, we can be in a toxic relationship, we can experience all these things, and we may not always identify it as such, or even acknowledge it as such, or even just, you know, acknowledge what our role is in it. So it's important that whether it's a friend, a foe, a family member, a partner, a relationship, a family ship, whatever, that we identify and understand what those things looks like. So to initiate the conversation, I think the best place to start is that we tackle, what do you identify as toxicity and then how do you relate?
I'll go first.
Yeah.
I think you identify it as, if I'm not mistaken, toxicity is what, if it make you feel worse, if it make you feel worse, then it make you feel better. If it don't make you feel good at all, like, that's considered toxic. Like, any point of time it don't make you feel good, it's toxic. Any point of time make you feel worse than you better, or make you feel lower than the person that you are, it's toxic. So therefore, yeah. And what was the other part?
How do you relate?
It's in many forms and aspects. Like, it's toxic all around us, and it's toxic. We deal with toxic people every day. Your best friend might be toxic. Your ex.
My best friend not toxic.
Hold on, y'all. Can you clean that up? He ain't talking about me.
I ain't talking about
He
this
not
best
talking about my
friend.
best friend.
I ain't talking about this best
He
friend.
not talking about my best friend.
Best friend might be toxic. Ex, baby daddy, your mama, dad, family members, church members, workplace. Like toxic is all around us. The cashier, like it's everywhere. So the biggest thing about it is identifying it and how to avoid it. A lot of people don't know how to identify it, they don't know how to avoid it, and when you get sucked into it, then you stuck. And that's when you into the toxic hurricane. So I think that's the biggest thing.
Y'all, I think he done summed that up real good. But to add to it, I do agree that toxic is, if something makes you feel less than, not worthy, then that is a form of toxic. Love can be and is toxic. Is it truly love though? Yeah. Because if someone truly loves you, then you shouldn't feel less than. If I say I love you, and I'm gonna stand on it. But everybody is not as genuine. So not genuine love or lust.
Yes.
Toxic.
Yeah.
To guinea pig off of what you said, I believe that something that doesn't make you feel good, someone that really makes you feel less than. Like you said, relationships can be toxic. Friendships can be toxic, and how people you surround yourself with that you might not be friends with can be toxic and rub that off on you.
So be careful of the company you keep is what I got from that.
Yes. I think
Topic.
I think, like, for me, all of what you guys said really just sums up worth. And truly, when it comes down to worth, when I'm a firm believer that when you understand, when you make note of and value your own worth, then you have that bandwidth, that wherewithal to be able to identify where things, like you said, may make you feel less than, or may make you feel unworthy of what you truly are. And I think for me personally, when it comes down what I identify as toxic or toxicity is, people, places, and things that I don't feel accepted or that make me feel uneasy, that places that you go where you're not celebrated. Like I always tell my staff, like, when you come to work, I want you to feel celebrated, not tolerated. And it's important that you're never allowed to be in a space, never allow yourself to be in a space where you get comfortable with being uncomfortable, you know? And so many times, you know, you get caught up in what we talked about when it comes down to lethal loyalty. Like, sometimes you stay loyal because of the comfortability. Like, you stay loyal because it's familiar. And it's easy. And you may be in a situationship or in a toxic relationship or in the midst of toxicity, not really identifying it as such because you're comfortable. Because it's familiar. When you know something not right and you know that it's a place where you're not celebrated but you're tolerated. And I think as you establish and understand your own worth, you never want to be in a situation where you feel tolerated. You always want to be where you feel celebrated. Whether you're walking in the room with a group full of people, whether you're with your peer group, whether you're at work, whether you're in a relationship. And it's not always just an intimate relationship. It's friendships, it's peer groups, you know. Shoot, it's the person at Starbucks that you meet every day, you know, to grab your cup of coffee. So I think it's important that, like you said, you can identify those things to try, like what Ken said, to avoid them, or at least have a better approach to them.
And an understanding.
And a better understanding to them. And I think we all can relate because we all have the same experience. Like, my experience may not be your experience, but we have all experienced
some form of
toxicity and some form of toxic relationships.
So with that being said, while we're speaking of transparency, would anybody like to share a toxic experience that they've had to endure? I mean, it can be past, present, you know, things of that nature.
Yeah, I would go first.
Go again!
I've experienced many toxic relationships in workplaces.
Okay.
And it's not the easiest thing to do when you feel like you walk into a black hole. Like I said, if you don't identify the toxicity, the toxicity of the situation, you will get sucked into it.
Yeah.
And then you find yourself lost and confused and really not know how to get out of it. And then the person is winning, the toxic person, because now they know they got you. You confused, you pissed, you mad, and now you stuck. You in a cycle. Once you're in a cycle of toxicity, that word's gonna get me out. Once you're in that cycle, it's not the easiest thing to break. People can be stuck in cycles forever, and you can cycle 10, 12, 15 times before you realize I gotta break it. So and it's really a mental burden. If anything, like no more than physical, but mentally, that it'll hurt you. So I've had and most of mine been with managers. Most of 90% of my encounters been with managers. And I was young, I didn't understand it. I hot-headed and feel like she always said I have a problem with authority. I think I do. But I feel like, you know, once you feel like somebody has that hold on you, you gotta fight back. And you don't think about your fight back, you just do whatever comes to your mind instead of actually doing the smart way about it. So
Workplace. Well, I could speak on a relationship that turned into a situationship that turned into a no-ship. But speaking on that, I remember being in a toxic relationship for years. But it was mainly for the lack of self-care that I let myself believe that what he was saying, because I thought it was love. Again, young, that puppy love will have you assuming that y'all are good. But when you realize, like you said, tolerate it. Don't tolerate me. You know, you either gonna be there or you're not. So you either love me or you're not. You either like me or you don't. And realizing my worth helped me to get out of that toxic relationship. And when I say years, I mean years. I was down, but thank the Lord.
You've been delivered. You delivered. You blessed up.
I'm blessed up. So bigger and better things are up for me as far as relationships. But noticing it was the lack of acknowledgement or the lack of care, lack of love
Thinking back on what you said, that makes
Yeah.
sense, because if you don't love yourself, you will find yourself in a toxic situation.
Yeah, because you think that's okay.
And you don't know yourself.
Yeah.
You don't know what your expectation is of yourself, so anybody else can take advantage of you.
Right.
Yeah.
What he said.
Well, I can speak from the friend aspect as being in a toxic relationship with a friend and not knowing being in a toxic relationship. Like you said, the comfortability with being loyal. Loyal to the bone at that. And with being loyal, you also not knowing your worth. So being in those relationships and those aspects, you have to know your worth. And knowing that you don't, it's good to be loyal, but you can't be loyal to someone that ain't being loyal to you at the same time. So learning your worth, learning how much you're worth, and learning how much you'll tolerate. And you don't want to be in a room or a place or an aura where you're tolerated. You want to be in a room where you're valued.
You know, I think I can relate to all aspects of my life, like in the workplace, in intimate partner relationship, in friendships. I can relate to all of those different scenarios. I think for me, what is more relatable is in an intimate partner relationship. Like in a relationship I was in for years, you know, and I think in the midst of being in this toxicity, I'd like compromise my own standards, and I'd like learn to tolerate what it was. And it was kind of like the toxic relationship that you just have a clear understanding type thing. But even in that, I think both he and I realized that we were toxic to each other. So when we parted ways, like, it was no hard feelings. It was like, you're just not good for me, and I'm just not good for you. And it was a mutual agreement. Like, we're not good for each other. Like, sometimes it's not to say that that person is a bad person or you a bad person. Sometimes you truly just don't fit. And if you don't fit, then you don't fit. And I think
you must have quit.
You must have quit. I think so often a lot of people feel like, you know, when you part ways with the relationship, whether it be a friendship, whether it be an intimate partnership, any relationship where there's intimacy that is involved, where you have been vulnerable with the person. A lot of times people feel like, oh, when you part ways, it's this, you know, ill will, or, you know, you got to be like by beach type thing. And sometimes it's not that. Sometimes it's like, okay, we've parted ways because we knew we deserved better and we wanted better. And he wasn't at a point where he wanted better, but I wanted better, and I saw better in my, you know, then friend that is not my husband, and that's what I wanted and craved. And so it was just like, we're gonna part ways because we're not good for each other. This is toxic, and at the end of the day, whether I want to be with you or not, I at least want you to be happy. And that's how we parted ways. And I think when it comes down to parting ways with the toxic relationships, there's grief on both sides. Like, there's grief on both sides. Like, you have to grieve the idea or the concept in what you think that you've lost, and that you may also grieve that comfortability. You may also grieve that familiarity, because you don't just wake up and be in a toxic relationship. Like, it takes time, effort, and energy. You know, it happens over time. And I like what Ken said about cycles. I like what Ken said about, you know, like this, you know, motion that you're in, because a lot of times what we as Black and brown communities don't recognize or don't identify is we have toxicity in our own family. Like, we can be raised in toxicity. Like, we can be raised with this ideal of survival and carry that ideal of survival into other relationships, and it spill off on that. And that's where you find generational curse. Like, you find like generational curse in places where my mama was toxic, so I just so happened to be toxic because it spilled off on me, and now I'm creating a home with somebody else, but this is toxic. You know, I think we have to be able to understand.
I remember right now.
I think we have to be able to identify toxicity. We have to acknowledge it as such, and we have to not just relate to it, but work towards a resolution for ourselves.
Right.
You know, I can't fix everybody else, but I can fix what's in me.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that when you understand your worth, that you also work towards being whole. Because if you can work towards being whole, then your wholeness will cover you from that toxicity.
That's good.
So I have a question for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
How do you break the cycle? And it could be in any, because across the board, toxicity is a cycle in any aspect, like you said. So how do you break it? How do you start shunning away? Like you said, y'all identified it with each other. Okay, cool. But what did you identify to know that it was toxic, and what steps did you have to do to break away from that?
Parting ways didn't happen overnight. It wasn't like, okay, we know we toxic for each other, we don't want to be together. It was more like, you know, chipping away at little things, like identifying like these are the things that I don't like. And when you understand that it's things about a person or a relationship or a situationship that you don't like, and you're no longer at that point of tolerance, then you start to set boundaries. You start to set standards. And when you start to set standards and hold true to those standards and hold true to those boundaries, then you chip away at the toxicity, because it's like, this is something that I can't stand for. This is something that I can't agree with. Now, that's not to say that it won't be good for you, that it won't be good for your next person or your next friendship or your next situationship and whatever you have going on, but it's not good for me. And I think when you discover more, or when you discover that you want more, then you seek more. So often in families, and this is probably the most generic example that I can give. So often in families, you run into like that one auntie that don't nobody fool with, right? So when you have that one auntie that don't nobody fool with, it's just like generations and generations. You hear the stories about this auntie, and you don't fool with that auntie because you know of the stories. But how often is it that you take the time to get to know the auntie, to break down those barriers, to be able to say, okay, this is my experience with that person, and that may not be your experience, but this is my experience, and I'm gonna lean into my own personal experience and build a relationship off of my experience instead of the stories that I've heard.
Just like in Tato, we don't talk about Bruno.
Yeah. Yes, that's a great example.
They shunned out Bruno, and everybody in the family did not fool with Bruno, all because of what Mama Thea, what was her name?
Yeah, what's her name?
The mama, all how she felt about it. She shunned her own son out, and the whole family just disowned him, just like that, without everybody knowing who he really was. But the granddaughter, learned who he was.
We watch a lot of Encanto in our house.
Yeah, but that makes sense. Like, it's a curse.
Yeah.
And it's somebody has to break it. And I realized the one thing that people lack and we don't really acknowledge is a support system. Because a support system will help you come out of any kind of toxic relationship, friendship, whatever. Like, because they are there, they see it, they understand it, they can help you come out of it. You may not want to listen, but they are there to support you in whatever you need. And people don't really want to hear that. When they in no situation, like, I can like, yeah, that ain't a good situation. That ain't, I don't want to hear that. I love him, he loves me, and this and that. Oh, that's my friend, that's my homegirl. Oh, we my ride or die. Oh, we do. And she just messed with your ex-boyfriend, and you mad about it. That's the type of stuff that we deal with, and we could have been saying it the whole time, but you so blind to the fact, you never paid attention to it. But you don't listen to us because we feel like we being mean or being mischievous or not on your side, but we just want to see the better. How you say it?
Sleeping with the devil.
I'm not sleeping with the devil. I want to see I want to see you in a better situation.
Right. You want, but I think it's important, especially when it comes down to being able to, like you said, have these experiences and being transparent with them and identifying these things, is that you have to want it for yourself.
Yeah.
Like you said, it doesn't matter how much I want for you, how much I strive for you or desire for you. You have to want it for yourself. Like,
that's when, you know, like when you a kid, you know, they say stop touching it, don't touch that. Well, I ain't had that type of mama. It was like, go touch that, go do that. So I can experience that hotness or that, whatever the case may be, something that was going hurt me, but because I was being me, hard-headed. I can show y'all today, is right here. I was hard-headed. She said, do not jump over his back. Baby, I'm Superwoman. And I was Superwoman with an iron on my leg at 1 year old.
Oh, Jesus.
And that was, that's why I say you have to learn it for yourself.
Yeah.
And you have to, I mean, just like when you addicted, you know, until that person wants to help, then I can want it all day long. I can cry till I turn blue.
Yeah.
I can cry till hell I die. And that's another thing. You got to stop worrying about other people because you have to worry about yourself.
Not my life, not my lesson.
Yes.
I like that. Not my life, not my lesson. So for 2023 and the rest of 2022, that's what we on right now. But you just have to want it for yourself.
Yeah.
If you don't want it for yourself, it's nothing that I can do. It's nothing that nobody can do when it comes to any type of relationship, any ship that you may be experiencing.
Ship.
Big facts.
So,
but I feel like y'all can hit on the nail with that one. Can I ask a question?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, back to what you were saying. How do you set these healthy boundaries with these toxic people, though?
you have to know who you are first.
Yeah.
And then once you discover who you are first, and then you know what your boundaries are, but sometimes you have to sit and just reflect. What am I going to accept? What can I tolerate?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? What will I allow to be in my space, in my aura, as you would say?
Yeah.
So you have to know those things first in order to tackle that head on.
You know,
So discovering self first.
Don't feed into it.
Yeah.
Don't feed the energy into the toxic relationship. Don't overshare information to where it can use back on you.
But stay woke.
Stay woke. Like she said, set boundaries. Be a support system. Those are big 5 identifiers in breaking that cycle. You have to have basic self-awareness.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, self-awareness.
To do that. So basically keep to yourself and kind of like it'll slowly start dying off. Like you don't give oxygen to fire, the fire die out.
Yeah, that's true.
That's good.
That's good. I think it's important to set your own value. And I say that because when you don't set your own value, then you allow people to determine what your worth and value is. And when you do that, then you will accept and tolerate and take on anything. And this is not an easy thing. Like I can't say that I woke up every morning and felt worthy and felt value because I gave it to myself. No, I can never say that. I think one of the best words of advice that I've ever gotten in my life was, when you're tired, you will be tired. So, and that's how I live my life. Like, you can talk about being tired, you can be tired, but when you're tired, you will be tired. And when you're tired, like you tap into that strength. Like it's kind of like you don't know that you have to be strong until you put in a position where you have to be strong. And I feel like when it comes to breaking the cycle, it starts with understanding your own worth, adding value to that, setting that value, and being at a place where you set your own standards and tolerance. And you have to chip at it. You have to be aware of it and be at a point where you're doing it for yourself.
Yeah. Get out of my bubble, beach.
So we touched on this just a little bit, but I want to ask this question too, because we talked about like being in the aura with, you know, places and situationships and ships as a whole that are toxic. But how often are we identifying toxicity within ourselves?
That's good, because I was gonna say that the person toxic, but I allowed it. So that makes me toxic as well. So like you say, it's a chain reaction. It's a cycle. We up and down. And I'm tit for tat because I'm petty. But you want to be toxic, I can be toxic, but that makes me a toxic person.
Yeah.
And I'm woman enough to say when I'm being toxic, I don't have a problem with it. I just need my space. And it's nothing that I crave to want to be toxic. But again, if I'm allowing toxicity into my aura, into my space, then that kind of petty makes me toxic as well. So
I done had my days of being toxic. I done had my days of being in that space, and it's like you don't feel good about yourself. You don't, like, especially if you know it, and especially been through it so much, you feel it.
But in that moment, you feel great.
Oh my God, it feel like you got your lick back, like you won, like you did what you needed to do. But at the same time, it's not a good thing.
Yeah.
And guarantee you doing it is gonna come back to you. So,
it's karma.
It really is, especially with that. So it's like it's situational. Like your teens and your 20s, toxic as hell. It's all about being toxic. It's all about diving and figuring it out and effing up and but when you get to your 30s, you don't want none of that. Like, it just stink. Like, it's just a bad aura. Like, if you just like somebody just musty and they walk past you and your face cringe, that's what toxicity do in your 30s. Like, you don't want to deal with it. Like, you don't want to be around it. You don't want to smell it. Like, you can see it from a mile away. Ooh, what they just do? I think I'm gonna go this way. Oh, what they talking about? That's messy. I don't want to deal with that. Like, you start identifying it in people from afar, even in that conversation that you're not even in. Like, you can hear it, the toxicity in their voice. Like, you don't want to deal with it. So it's like, it comes with maturity.
Yeah.
Definitely, because a lot of people, like I said, we didn't understand it back then. We see it now. Like, ooh, we did some stuff, but I mean,
we had the time.
But yeah, it just comes with maturity, and it comes with, you have to go through it.
Yeah.
I can't tell you about it. You have to go through it so you can feel it for yourself. So.
Well, I was gonna go, but you can go. Well, I was just gonna say, like, I oftentimes think or feel like when it comes down to identifying toxicity in my own life, it's come as a form of retaliation. I can be the pettiest of the petty. And I used to be very proud of being petty. Now I'm just like, okay, like Ken said, it feels mature like petty. I'm a mature petty, yeah. I feel like Ken said, it's like getting your lick back. Like, oftentimes when you think about being toxic or, toxicity, then a lot of times it's responding to something that is toxic that has happened to you. But you then, when you respond to it, when you retaliate, you create that cycle. You become a part of it. And I think for me, I just have gotten to the age where I'm learning to set healthier boundaries, and not just set those boundaries, but keep those boundaries. So keep those boundaries with people, but also keep those boundaries with myself, because at the end of the day, I gotta hold myself accountable. I'm a firm believer that karma is a woman and karma is a bitch. She's probably African American also. Or she may be brown. She's definitely a minority, black or brown. And I say that because the way that karma comes around, like, so often when we retaliate, when we initiate the toxicity, we don't think about what's going to be the after effect. And toxicity may be something that you respond to or retaliate with, and you may not get it back from that same person, but you better believe that it's going to come back. And karma is the one person, the one thing, the one people, place, a thing that always knows your address and does not forget. So that's why I believe she's a woman. She's a minority woman, because we don't forget and we know how to get it done. So I just feel like when it comes down to acknowledging it in yourself, then you have to remember whether you respond, create, or retaliate, is going to come back. And in my 20s, yeah, it wasn't a big factor. I didn't really care. But now in my 30s, I'm like, you know what? Let me not even, respond, because some things are better left unsaid. Right. Some things does not require my attention or my response. And oftentimes when it comes to the retaliation of toxicity, you have to understand some people aren't at a point where they want to outgrow their toxic. Like, some people are okay with the curses. Some people are okay with the toxicity. And that's for them to deal with, not for me to deal with.
What? And she said, I am my mother's child, so I am very petty. And at that moment, it feels like, oh, I won. I got my lick back. I did what I had to do. But as you're putting out that toxic energy, like they say, it's going to come back to you. And for me, when I sit and reflect about my life, I sit and reflect about my day, I don't like that aura being attached to me.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you had that aura coming towards you, you wouldn't want it to be attached to you to go to the next person.
Or lay down with it.
Yeah, you don't want it to come back to you or even be around you in that certain sense.
Yeah.
And you have to learn how to set boundaries. I'm still learning my boundaries and learning how to set boundaries. But within setting those boundaries, you have to allow yourself to move away and love people from a distance.
Yeah.
Because if you still sitting in that same place with those toxic people who not ready to move from their toxicness, it's gonna make you want to stay there.
Y'all see my baby in her words?
Yeah. Y'all know my boundaries? Quit playing with me.
Ha! Quit playing with me. Yeah, stand on what you said, and I'm gonna stand on what I said.
Keep that same energy.
I tell it to everybody. I live by that at work. Quit playing with me. I am not the one to play with. I don't play like that. I'm here for one thing. I take care of my family. I'm going home. Anything else, I'm going to jail. Leave me alone.
What he said.
That's where we at. Ha! You see that line? I crossed it. Stop.
So for those of you that are just now tuning in, we are talking about toxicity. Toxic.
Toxicity.
Toxic relationships.
I wish we had that
Toxic situationships.
I wish we had that insert when they had that Joe Biden moment. Yeah, that word kicked his ass.
well, we are learning how to pronounce toxicity and say it routinely in this conversation, but we are also at a point where we've had our own experiences with that. And we're sharing it with our talk community in order to bring insight and experience and awareness to it in hopes that you will have these conversations and continue them by, of course, what we've said in setting boundaries, being able to add value, being able to cross the line and say, well, set the line and say, don't come for me or don't play with me.
Play with your mammy, baby.
But also being able to not just identify it in your surroundings, but identify it within yourself and understand that it's more to come with retaliation and understanding that, hey, this is not something that I want to get in bed with or lay down with.
That's good when you say the retaliation, because on TikTok, I'm not a TikTok fan, but you know, somebody sent me a TikTok and it was like, I'm not gonna get my lick back. God hit harder than I do, so let him deal with it.
I like that.
I let go and I let God. Amen.
Amen.
But yeah, this was really good because a lot of times you don't talk about it. Toxic situations and being in toxic situationships, you just never know what life is or how people deal with it. So for us to be able to sit and talk amongst each other, but also talk and give pointers and different things to that to the community, it was very much needed.
Very much to deal with it. Just don't. Just don't even. Just don't even. Learn yourself, love yourself. Set your boundaries. Please set your boundaries with anybody.
Know your worth, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes. Especially men, because y'all so weak. Y'all feel like that y'all can't be vulnerable and all that stuff, but y'all be the main ones want to be toxic. Gonna be the main ones crying when to kill yourself. So fellas, start loving yourself, please. Like honestly, like really start taking account of being more personable with yourself. It'll be a lot easier for everybody else because we are the main ones being the toxic ones. So.
Amen. Speak the truth, brother.
Allow yourself to set boundaries. Allow yourself not to let other people cross them boundaries. And also, when you set those boundaries, make sure that you're allowing yourself where you're valued and not tolerated.
And don't let nobody set your boundaries.
Yes.
Yep.
I never thought about that. Don't let nobody set your boundaries.
Yeah.
Don't clear alt delete on me.
So it sounds like we're sharing our takeaways is what I got. And for me, I think my takeaway with self-discovery and my ever-evolving relationship with self-love is to be able to understand that when it comes down to toxicity, it all goes back to my own self-worth and self-love, and grow to a place where you will fight for love but not to be loved. And for me, that's in every ship: relationship, friendship, workship, loveship. Like, I can love my job, I love what I do, and I will fight for my love for my job, but not for my job to love me back. When I walk in, I want to be happy that I'm there. I want to be celebrated and know that I bring, what I bring to the team. In a friendship, in a relationship, in a parentship, in all ships, know and value what you bring and look to be celebrated and not tolerated.
That's good.
Any other takeaways from you guys?
Stand on what you stand on. Stand on what you said, and don't allow people to move you.
Yeah.
So be good to yourself. That way you can be good to others.
Yeah.
Praise God.
Praise God. Okay.
Say that, Doc.
Walk that down.
Yes. Okay. So this was a great talk time.
It was.
And truly, we just scratched the surface of this topic in regards to toxic relationships and toxicity. What I would, they gonna pick at me all night. They gonna pick at me.
Come on, Joe.
But what I would like to say is, as we continue with these series, I encourage you guys to maintain involvement with the community. Have these conversations. Keep the topic going with your own peer group to be able to bring more awareness and insight. Share, be a part of the community by subscribing to the YouTube channel at JAYKC Podcast. And also check us out on Tuesdays for Talk Tuesdays, when we have live discussions and takeaways about the actual new episodes. So those are ways that you can keep the conversation going, but you can also comment in the comment section below, so that you can, get our feedback, and of course be able to share your feedback just the same. We have a couple of things that are going on and coming up this week with Tiff Talks. You want to share? Whoop, whoop. You want to share?
You go, girl.
Okay. So we have installment 7. Oh, that's my favorite number. Installment 7, issue 2, volume 3 of Community and Power. Legacy Amplified. Amplified Legacy, I'm sorry. They're interchangeable. But Amplified Legacy, we have 4 awesome entrepreneurs that are going to be featured. And we have been completing the introductions throughout this month. So if you haven't seen them, go back and check them out on our IG page. But we're going to be releasing the digital copy on Tuesday. So please stay tuned and be on the lookout for that. It will be released at 11 a.m. And then there'll also be printed copies that will be available that following week. So pre-sale is going on right now. Make sure that you go and order your pre-sale copy. Pre-sale copies are $12. After next Sunday, they will go back up to $15. And that is with free shipping for the $12. Also, we have our Goal Sisters.
Yes, and I can't wait. Now, that's my baby.
That's your baby.
That's going to be October the 8th. You can still go and purchase your tickets for that event. We even have everything up, what you can purchase with that ticket. It's a very intimate situation going on. Situationship going on. But the intimacy is what I crave for. Women are able to be vulnerable, be open. I mean, be very transparent.
Right.
And we really, truly enjoy that. And we not knocking anybody. Y'all can come on in. We'll love you like you've been there.
Yeah.
And just go ahead to our link bio. Everything is in there. As it relates to purchasing your tickets on our Eventbrite. And we hope to see you there. But don't forget, it's also virtual. So if you do not get a slot for the in-person, there will be virtual slots available. That is also on the Eventbrite. But you guys, tune in and we can't wait.
And it's so much that goes into Gold Sisters. So not only do you get like swag that is seasonal geared toward the actual event, but you get lunch. You get a take-home activity, an activity that you'll do there, and we oftentimes have a game that we also play. So it's like a jam-packed 2 hours that is insightful, that's fruitful, that, you know, is thought-provoking with like-minded women to be able to engage and be a part of this, you know, this opportunity. I'm a firm believer that time is like the most important commodity that we all have. And it's just as valuable. Like, it's the one thing that you can always give but never get back. So for me, time is something that I hold very true to. I don't like to waste my time, and I like to cherish my time. So the time that I have with them, I cherish it. I don't waste it. And it is never a wasted opportunity or wasted time when we are with, you know, in each other's company. And another thing that Kinshay and I have already started working on is Visionary Weekend 2023. I am so excited. Like, we've already like started working on the release. The actual installment of Community and Power will have the save the date and kind of some general admission information. And on October the 1st, we will begin releasing details. This is a visionary weekend that you do not want to miss. It is going to be like none other. This is going to be what, 4?
Yes.
It's going to be 4.
But don't just go over that.
Oh,
Say it again. It's a weekend.
It's a weekend.
It's a weekend.
It's a weekend.
So we've done the visionary party where we have it for that day.
Right.
But y'all, it's gonna be dope. It's the weekend.
It's the whole weekend. It's a weekend
It's
of
a
activity.
vibe.
It's gonna be a vibe. It's a weekend of activities. So there'll be activities on Saturday and activities on Sunday, just the same. And you're able to attend both. We encourage you to attend both. And that Saturday, we actually close out our Gold Sisters for this year. So definitely stay tuned for that. You're going to want to grab your tickets early because it will be limited seating. And we have already kind of placed the cap on the number of people that we will allow. And we'll have a very big announcement to share as well. So definitely want to be a part.
Tune in.
Stay tuned. But outside of that, I think that is all the announcements that we have for today. We appreciate you guys for taking time out on your Sunday afternoon to participate and be a part of this all new episode. We encourage you to remain connected to our IG at JAYKC Marketing, but also our YouTube channel here at JAYKC Podcast. Like, subscribe, and hit that little ding so that you can get all the new episodes, and also a reminder when we have new footage here. As always, we encourage you guys to keep
Talking.